Nobody inside that house knew the evening would end with police lights, crying family members, and two bodies lying still inside the rooms where they once laughed together. On February 21st, 2026, retired Berkeley Fire Chief Henry Williams was at his home on North Clay Avenue in Ferguson, Missouri, with his 15-year-old daughter, Ha'layna Elliott. Family members had spoken to Henry earlier that evening, around 5:30 p.m. He sounded normal. Plans were made for relatives to stop by the house later that night. Nothing during that call warned anybody that something terrible was already building inside the home. Henry Williams was not a stranger in that community. People knew him from years of public service. He became Berkeley's fire chief in 2003 when he was only 40 years old. Friends said he worked hard, stayed calm under pressure, and treated people with respect. Even after retirement, he kept working at Boeing's St. Louis Fire Department. Outside work, most people knew him as a father who stayed close to his daughter. He coached basketball, helped young players during practice, and spent time supporting Ha'layna at games and tournaments across the area. Ha'layna was only 15, but many people already knew her name. She played basketball at Pattonville High School and also played AAU basketball with a traveling team called the Phenom. Coaches described her as funny, energetic, and confident on the court. Teammates said she loved making TikTok videos during trips and always kept the mood light around the team. Parents sitting in the stands remembered how often her shots went in. Her father was usually close by during games, cheering for players and helping them improve. People around them saw a close father and daughter relationship that looked full of support and trust. But while friends saw smiles at basketball games and community events, police later said another situation was growing behind closed doors. Henry's girlfriend, 61-year-old Linda Hayden, was also inside the house that evening. Investigators later called the shooting a domestic-related crime. Court documents showed tension had been building inside the relationship before the killings happened. Some people close to the situation later claimed Hayden was preparing to move into another place within days. Police have not publicly confirmed exactly what happened before the shooting started, but investigators believe everything inside that home changed within a short amount of time. Around 6:11 p.m., family members arrived at the house after speaking with Henry earlier. The moment they walked inside, they found something horrifying. Henry Williams was lying in the kitchen with a gunshot wound to the back of his head. Ha'layna Elliott was found inside her bedroom with a gunshot wound to her forehead. Family members immediately called 911 while trying to understand what they were seeing. Emergency crews rushed to the home, but there was nothing left to save. Both father and daughter were pronounced dead at the scene. The news spread fast through Ferguson and North St. Louis County. Police cars blocked off the quiet street while investigators moved through the house searching for evidence. Officers from the Ferguson Police Department entered room after room, trying to piece together what had happened in the minutes before the killings. Then, they reached the master bedroom and found another shocking detail waiting behind a locked door. Inside the bedroom, police found Linda Hayden. Investigators said she had locked herself inside the room after the shootings. Officers also recovered a .38 caliber revolver near her. According to court records, the revolver still had 3 live rounds inside the chamber, along with 2 spent shell casings. Police took Hayden into custody without any struggle. But before officers even started asking full questions, investigators said Hayden made a statement on her own. Police documents say Hayden told officers she guessed she was the villain in the story, and described Henry Williams as a bad man and a narcissist. Those words immediately became part of the investigation because officers believed they could help explain what led to the violence inside the home. Police later confirmed Hayden and Henry had been in a relationship before the killings. Investigators carefully examined every part of the crime scene throughout the night. Detectives photographed the rooms, collected evidence, and interviewed relatives who discovered the bodies. Officers also worked to build a timeline showing who spoke to Henry before the shootings and how much time passed before the family arrived at the home. The timeline became important because relatives had spoken to Henry only around 40 minutes before they discovered the killings. That short gap left investigators focused on what exactly happened inside the house during those final moments. By the next morning, prosecutors officially charged Linda Hayden with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of armed criminal action. She was transported to the St. Louis County Justice Center while investigators continued collecting evidence connected to the killings. Court documents showed investigators were focusing heavily on the revolver recovered inside the locked bedroom, along with statements Hayden made to officers at the scene. Detectives also used the timeline built from phone calls, witness interviews, and the family members who discovered Henry Williams and Ha'layna Elliott inside the house. A judge set Hayden's bond at $2 million cash only, with no 10% option. She was transported to the St. Louis County Justice Center, where she remained in custody. Her next court appearance was scheduled for March 2nd, when a judge would hear a motion asking for bond reduction. Police said the investigation was still active, and any future updates would come through the Ferguson Police Department and the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office together. Even after the arrest, one detail stayed in people's minds more than anything else. It was the statement Hayden made while officers were still inside the house. According to police documents, Hayden told officers she guessed she was the villain in the story. She also called Henry Williams a bad man and a narcissist. Investigators believed those words could help explain what was happening emotionally inside the home before the shooting. Police never publicly released a full motive, but people close to the situation believed problems inside the relationship had been growing before the killings. Some reports claimed Hayden was expected to move into another place within days. Others believed she was struggling with the relationship ending. Investigators continued looking into the history between Hayden and Henry while building the case. Friends of Hayden struggled to believe the accusations. One close friend publicly said she did not see Hayden as a monster and prayed for her while she sat in jail. Another friend said the entire thing felt shocking and confusing because they never expected her to be connected to something this violent. But for investigators, the focus stayed on the evidence collected inside the house that night. As officers stayed at the scene, grief quickly spread through schools, basketball teams, workplaces, and city offices connected to Henry and Ha'layna. Henry Williams was not just known as a retired fire chief. Many people knew him as Coach Henry. Former players described him as patient and supportive. Some called him a second father who gave advice both on and off the basketball court. Parents remembered him standing near the court during games, encouraging players when they struggled. At Boeing, co-workers remembered him as friendly every morning when he arrived at work. One worker said Henry always carried a smile and treated people kindly every single day. For many people, Ha'layna's death hurt just as deeply. She was only 15 years old and already becoming a rising basketball player in the area. Teammates described her as funny, goofy, and full of energy during tournaments and road trips. Friends talked about the TikTok videos they made together at gas stations during travel games. Students at Pattonville High School returned to school carrying shock and confusion. Counselors were made available for students and staff as classmates struggled to understand how someone they had just seen days earlier was suddenly gone forever. The basketball community across North St. Louis County also felt the loss deeply. Ha'layna's team planned to honor her during an upcoming game. Coaches said she fit into the team quickly and made an impact almost immediately. Players, parents, and coaches across the area shared photos and memories online while trying to process what happened. As the criminal case moved forward, another reality started setting in for everyone connected to the tragedy. Two families were now left trying to live with something that could never be undone. Dr. Cynthia Bennett, who works with a domestic violence nonprofit called Jadasa, spoke about the damage cases like this leave behind long after the headlines fade away. She explained that families on both sides are forced to face a completely different reality overnight. She said both families now have to pick up the pieces and try to move on, whatever that new normal is for them. Bennett also explained that support services, therapy, and trauma-informed care were being offered because pain from events like this does not disappear quickly. While one family grieved the loss of Henry and Ha'layna, another family was also trying to understand how someone they loved ended up accused of killing two people. That emotional conflict became another painful layer surrounding the case. Meanwhile, investigators kept working behind the scenes. Detectives continued reviewing evidence, conducting interviews, and organizing the case for court proceedings. Police did not release many additional details publicly, which left many people still wondering exactly what happened inside the home during those final minutes before relatives arrived. Even with an arrest, many questions still remained unanswered. Investigators knew where the victims were found. They knew where the revolver was recovered. They knew Hayden was inside the locked bedroom when officers arrived. But detectives were still working to understand the full sequence of events inside the house before the gunfire stopped. People close to the case kept asking the same painful question. Why did Ha'layna also lose her life? Friends described her as a teenager focused on basketball, school, and her future. Videos shared online showed her smiling with teammates during games and tournaments shortly before the shooting. That made the loss even harder for many people to process. As court dates approached, the Ferguson community continued mourning a father and daughter who meant so much to so many people. Henry Williams had spent years protecting lives and mentoring young athletes. Ha'layna Elliott was just beginning her own journey, with friends believing her future on the basketball court was bright. Now, both names were tied forever to a tragedy that shocked the entire community. And while prosecutors prepared their case against Linda Hayden, many people were still waiting for the full story of what truly happened inside that Ferguson home on February 21st, 2026. Do you think this tragedy could have been prevented before it reached this point? Or do you believe nobody around them saw the warning signs in time?